And welcome back to this week of Roar Rundown here on the Ouachita Sports Digital Network. I'm Isaac Bourne, here with you once again, standing by with Phil Byrd. And Phil, it's been a week here at Ouachita. And, you know, while we're not doing the This Week at Ouachita podcast, I do feel like I need to talk about the main event. I feel like everybody is going to talk about it. Ouachita beat Harding.
It's insane. It's insane.
And, you know, after a week where we built up to it with so many interviews and so much just build up, and everyone going into this one had Harding. And, I mean, for good reason. Harding was a great team, had a great season going up into that. But at the same time, you know, no one once thought Ouachita would be able to take down the Bisons. But little did they know that behind the scenes, under everything going on, there was a plan. And I sat down with Dawson Miller at the beginning of the year, the captain of the defense at Ouachita, and you know, he talked about how, you know, they have a plan and they're ready for this one. A lot of people didn't believe them. And I mean, Phil, what happened?
You know, I going into the game, I saw a few pools that had Harding up 3 touchdowns at the end of this game. What really happened and what we saw was they contained the run. I said it last week, this game was going to be won and lost in the trenches. If you see Braden J, he had just 2.3 yards per carry coming in, or during this game. Coming in, he was averaging 19.1. They held him back. There were some long runs in there, but they really stopped anything serious from happening. They broke the longest win streak in Arkansas of all time, which is insane. They hadn't lost since their loss to Henderson October 2022, I think, which was absolutely crazy to me. They contained the run. And then also on offense, they got things done. They scored the first rushing touchdown of the season against Harding. Harding had not allowed any rushing touchdowns all season. They scored, and then they scored again, another touchdown. Really, and kind of a weird score, too, at the end with 17-13. But they really held them back on defense and got the job done on offense. And
you talked about holding back Braden J, and that really was one of the biggest parts of this defense. Obviously, I talk about Dawson Miller, but Kenna Jones, big player in this one, had that tackle for loss, a pass breakup, and then on top of that was third on the team in solo tackles. I mean, Kenna Jones, one of the better players in the secondary in the GAC, really showed why him coming back for this graduate season was so big for this team. And I mean, really just the graduate players on this team. We talked about Dawson Miller as well. Kemontre McKnight also had a big night in the receiving game, with 3 receptions, second best receiver on the team. But let's talk about receiving real quick and go to Connor Flanagan. You know, Connor Flanagan all season has been one of the top receivers in the GAC. This game, nothing different. 5 receptions and then a touchdown pass to Eli Livingston to put Ouachita up for good in the second half. And, you know, something you don't typically see, but Ouachita giving Harding a taste of their own medicine in that regard, you know, with the handoff fake, or as Livingston hands it off to Flanagan, and then Eli Livingston just a short route for 4 yards for that touchdown, something that you see Harding run to perfection a lot of the times, but Ouachita says, if what you can do, I can do better. And in that regards, I mean, the Tigers really did everything in just a little bit better than the Bisons, and that's all it really took. The defense was clicking. 1 for 12 on third downs were the Harding Bisons. And the Bisons coming into and coming out of this game were third in Division II in third down conversion rate. And the Tigers did what many thought was impossible, which is hold them on third down, forcing them to go for it on fourth down or even go for those field goal tries, which both of them over 40 yards. And, you know, just something that a lot of people coming into this game didn't think Ouachita could do, but every single player on that Ouachita lineup knew that they could compete with the Bisons, and none of them thought of the Bisons as greater than them. And that truly is what is the mark of a winning team, and a team that really is going to be dangerous come late November and maybe even early December.
Really good job by the coach in keeping the confidence up for these Tigers, making sure that they knew that they were as good or better than this Harding team, no matter what anyone in the media or press had to say.
And then looking before we go to this next Ouachita game, looking at what Harding's got on the schedule, they've got 2 tough ones in a row. Obviously, this one at Ouachita was a tough loss, but then now they've got to go back home, and waiting for them is the Mule Riders of Southern Arkansas, a team that gave Ouachita a really big run in Magnolia earlier this season, and a team that's coming off a big win over Henderson State in El Dorado. So a very dangerous situation for them. Meanwhile, though, the Tigers get to head to Russellville this weekend for a battle with Arkansas Tech, and the Wonder Boys coming off a loss to Arkansas Monticello. And, you know, in this game, while it is a trap game, how did the Tigers avoid these type of trap games?
Well, you know, you can't get complacent. The players said it multiple times in the post-game interviews that we conducted with them on the Ouachita Sports Digital Network. They got to take it one game at a time. They're celebrating this win. They're happy that they won against Harding. I know the campus is. I've heard more about it in the last 2 days than I've heard anyone else talk about football all season. It's really a great time for celebration, but also, you know, they have to look to the next game. They have to be prepared. They can't get confident. They can't get cocky or arrogant. They really have the capacity, they have the skill to beat this team. I think they probably will, but they just cannot get overly complacent against the Wonder Boys.
And speaking of those interviews post-game, you know, here's a couple clips from that earlier on Saturday.
All right, once again, I'm back with Dawson Miller, linebacker and captain of this Ouachita Tiger team that just took down the Harding Bisons 17-13 in a game for the ages here at Cliff Harris Stadium. Dawson, you know, leading this defense as a captain, you know, what was it like going up against an offense that you've seen before, but this time you're able to break it?
Yeah, I mean, we're not surprised by this. Like, this is what we expect. This is the standard. We're built to stop these guys. All week of practice, we had a great 5 days of work. Last year, I mean, we had them stoned for the first 3 quarters. We just put a full game together. That's all it took. I was so happy for the guys. I mean, it's one of the best wins in Ouachita history. It was legendary. I love it.
All right, Isaac Bourne standing by with QB1 of this Ouachita team that just took down Harding 17-13. Eli Livingston. Eli, you know, in this one, coming into it, you know, more of a rushing attack from you, but tonight you really showed that you can air it out as well. You know, talk about your approach going into this one.
We try to catch Harding off guard. I think they knew that we were more of a run heavy, and I think we went into it trying to throw a little bit more on first, second down. It really worked out. I do my best for my team.
And then now looking forward to the next one, you've got Arkansas Tech up next. You know, I know that you want to celebrate this win now, but, you know, next game up at this point, you know, going into Russellville, how do you take this momentum and bring it to the next one?
We do the same thing we do every week. We take it one day at a time, we practice at a time, we play at a time. That's what we've done all year. That's what's been working for us.
All right, thanks, Eli. Back to you.
And following that win against Harding, Ouachita now moves up to number 5 in the AFCA poll and number 7 in the D2 football poll. And with Harding dropping in those polls, Grand Valley State takes over number 1. And, you know, Grand Valley State going to be a big matchup for the Tigers later in the playoffs if the Tigers can get that home field advantage later on this season.
Hanson, Kisgan sets it up for Emily Adams. What a night for the junior. Free shot. And finally, Emily Adams does it. She's looking at Adams. And the block by Haley Fairchild. Lewis, what a play by the Southeastern defense to keep it from going down. Hanson looking for a player, and she finds Brazil that time. And Brazil knows exactly what to do with it. This time it's Emily Adams. Courtney Hanson, I mean, what a luxury for her to have in front of her Leah Gardner and then right behind her Emily Adams. You really can't go wrong with either choice with the left arm on the serve. And miscommunication once again for Southeastern. This time they're going to pay for it. Ollie, good dig by Brazil, and they're going to keep that one alive. Great effort by the Tigers to keep it alive, and now they're continuing this volley. And Leah Gardner puts it down. What an effort by the sophomore. Deal. Hanson Byrd finds the back corner and Denari Mills can't get under it. She thought she had something in the far corner. What a save by Fairchild. Both teams battling for it, and the Tigers are going to come on top in that one. I don't know how in the world Haley Fairchild was able to put enough spin on that one to save the Tigers there.
But now moving on from the field to the court, as the Lady Tigers of the volleyball team had 2 home games this week. First off against Southeastern Oklahoma State, and the Tigers going into that one, not a little bit of a rough road trip last week in Oklahoma, losing to Oklahoma Baptist and then barely beating out Southern Nazarene. And, the Tigers coming into this week with a little bit more motivation to try to get back on track, and that's exactly what they did. That Southeastern Oklahoma State, a big statement win for them. They take the first set in a battle. That second set goes into extra points, and the Tigers barely lose in that one, and then just utter dominance in that third and fourth set as the Tigers roll at home at Spec. And, just some big performances from that one. Kylie Kizgan, 20 digs in that one, just an all-around great defensive player. Interesting choice by head coach Allison Frizzell-Kaiser to put her at the libero spot over senior Avery Jowls, but it really did pay off in that one. And then moving to Friday, the day after, East Central came to town, and the Tigers did just as well, if not better, cleaning up in just 3 sets, sweeping the Orange Tigers. And Kylie Kizgan again with those 18 digs. Meanwhile, Kaylee Thedford with 13 kills. And this team really showed why they are one of the statistically top teams in the GAC. Still second in the GAC in hitting percentage this year, and it really shows this team's got some attackers. Obviously, I mentioned Thedford on Friday, but you've got Emily Adams as well. She had 17 kills against Southeastern. Obviously, Riley Brazil. You've got Leah Gardner. Just so many names that I could go through on this roster that can attack. And what does that mean for a team, Phil?
Well, I think going into that Southeastern Oklahoma State game, you saw their confidence down a little bit in the first 2 sets specifically. They went down a considerable amount in that second set. They came back to put it into extra points, and then they just rolled on over in the third and fourth set. I think we saw a little bit of a confidence boost late in the game. I think they were very, very conditioned well. They could hang with the best of anyone else, and they outpaced them. They were faster than them, and they wore Southeastern Oklahoma State out. And then in that East Central game, coming off of a win like that in the third and fourth sets especially, I think they had a lot more confidence. I think you see that in winning in 3, sweeping them in 3 sets. And then I think, obviously, we have to mention Courtney Hansen. Always an amazing setter on the court. Winning her 3rd GAC setter of the week. She had 33 assists in that game against East Central. Obviously, always an amazing player, but just showing once again why she is so good.
And then along with Hansen, Hansen almost business as usual, like we say. You said the 33 assists, one of the best in the GAC. She moves back into that second place spot for assists per set, and even then, though, she leads the GAC in total assists on the season. But aside from that, Kylie Kizgan, the sophomore out of Freeburg, Illinois, wins her first GAC Player of the Week, this time getting Defensive Player of the Week, and rightfully so. She had herself one of her best statistical weeks of her entire career, as like we said, that 20 dig game the first time out, and then in 3 sets racked up 18 digs. And a player like Kylie Kizgan is just a player every single team needs, a player that's not afraid to get on the ground for balls that you think most of the time are gone. Kylie Kizgan, so many times in that game against the Savage Storm, you would think that the volleyball was just hitting the floor and the Tigers needed to regroup, but Kylie Kizgan would get down for it, and then it just set up perfectly a set from Courtney Hansen right up to a player like Emily Adams or Leah Gardner, girls that can put it down and put it down very strong. And, this team works so well together, and when they're clicking, they are one of the top talents in the GAC. And so this week, they have a chance to prove that. Obviously, a trip to Alva, Oklahoma, as they take on Nuwasu, And I mean that should be a business as usual game for the Tigers, but with a road game, especially in Oklahoma, you never know. And then a big matchup against the top talent in the GAC against Southwestern Oklahoma State and the Bulldogs in Weatherford, Oklahoma. That will be the biggest test of strength this Tiger team has faced this season, as the Bulldogs are 9-1 in GAC play, and so they'll need to bring out all the stops if they want to take down this Bulldog squad and prove that they are one of the top talented teams in the conference. And so now, as we move on, let's move on to men's soccer and talk about this week that they had. Phil, going into this week, going against a Harding team, a little bit of a disappointing loss to the Bison. So let's talk about that one.
Going into that Harding game, Harding not a particularly impressive record going into that game against Ouachita. Ouachita doing considerably better than they have in previous seasons. We thought it was going to be a very, very even matchup. It really was. What really got Ouachita into trouble there was yellow cards, was fouls. We know that Ouachita is a very, very defensive team. They're fine with not holding possession for very long. They're fine with going on the counterattack and working through that. But the one thing that they can't do in that style of play is be sloppy or have fouls and get yellow cards. They had 8 yellow cards in that game. It really it hindered their ability to make those counterattacks. Every time they tried to get the ball back, they were called for a foul. So that's really not something you can do. They held Harding off for a while. They scored in the Harding scored in the 61st minute. It was kind of a chaotic goal. Overall, a very chaotic game in general. I really think that they can beat Harding. I think that they're a very, very evenly matched team. I think Ouachita is doing very, very well this season, especially with how expectations were going into the season. But I think taking away those fouls, being a little more organized and keeping their composure as they're trying to keep that defensive strategy is going to be how you don't get a result like that again. And then against Northeastern State as well, a very, very little offense. Once again, being very, very physical. We see this style of play almost every week from the Tigers. Northeastern Oklahoma State with just 2 shots on goal the entire game. OBU with none. Really, really good job defensively. But they just have to work through that counterattack if they want to score. Definitely doing a great job, though, at keeping them out of the back of the net.
And Coach Wes Hollyfield really kind of patenting this style with his Ouachita squad of just rough and tumble games where you're not going to see a lot of scoring from his team, but you're not going to see a lot of scoring from the other team as well. I mean, they've held some of the best teams in the GAC to very little goals, and I mean that shows, and especially that Northeastern State draw. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, Phil, that's a boring game. 0-0, no scoring, and then Northeastern State only 2 shots on goal the whole game, Ouachita with none. Really nothing there to look for. But Coach Wes Hollyfield, that's his MO. That's one of the things that he's really emphasized with this team this year. He's got some great guys in the back. Christian Baker, you've got Garcia as well in the back, both of the Garcias, Cameron and Jared, and so many other defensive players. Alfonso Gonzalez Gomez comes out as another name, player that has really been able to get in front and stop a lot of crosses this year. And so, all his team has really tried to work on the improvement for is just that offensive attack. Grant Isbell being a big name in that realm, but then also Alexis Murillo being the big name with those 5 goals in the season. So the Tigers hoping to rebound after that loss to Harding. And, I would consider that Northeastern State draw a good game for the Tigers because it really is just patented Tiger defense. It's something that team really is known for.
Absolutely. And for those watching that may not be as familiar with soccer, maybe didn't know that ties were possible, ties definitely are not a bad thing necessarily. They're not as good as wins, but they're not losses. So seeing that tie to Northeastern State is definitely very, very good. You mentioned some really, really good players. I want to call out some more as well. Hunter Reck always doing a good job on defense. one of the captains, very, very good at leading this team. Obviously, in goal, we always have to talk about Dylan Stahl. Dylan Stahl always does a great job at not letting anything that his defense might let through into the back of the net. Very, very good job, minimal mistakes from Stahl. And then I think offensively, some young guys that we're seeing, Jacoby Welsh, I think does a really, really good job at keeping pace, keeping that attack going, even if it's maybe not going as well as they want it to. He does a good job of not letting his confidence go down. This is a young Tiger soccer team. We have a lot of freshmen. Cam Garcia is a freshman. Jacoby Welsh is a freshman. A lot of these players that are getting a lot of playing time are really, really young. So I think we have a very bright future ahead at Cluckfield.
Exactly. And I mean, just speaking of that bright future at Cluckfield, before we go on to women's soccer, talking about how this week the Tigers finally have a little bit of a road trip going to Ouachita to face Newman, and then on Saturday they're going to Hays, Kansas to have their second matchup against Fort Hays State. But like you said, this young talent at Cluckfield, let's move to the other side of the pitch for women's soccer. And this week, young talent was really the MO. As we talk about how obviously that loss at Harding not really great for the Lady Tigers, but that East Central rebound is something that I really, really want to focus on. All 3 goals in that game given to underclassmen. The first one by Tegan Yowzy on the assist from Jordan Nelson. The second by Reese Brown on the assist from McKenna Wright. And then the third one, freshman McKenna Wright scoring a solo goal. And this performance alone really was enough to earn the freshman GAC Player of the Week. And so talking about this Ouachita squad, before we go back in time and talk about that Harding loss, let's talk about this young talent on this Lady Tiger team.
Absolutely. I think we're seeing a lot of great players. Jordan Nelson is a great player that comes off the bench a lot. She can kind of be seen as a super sub. She jumps into the game. She makes an immediate impact. Obviously with the first assist of the game. And then McKenna Wright, always an amazing player to watch on the field. I always really, really enjoy seeing her succeed with the assist and the score in this game. A solo goal is kind of a rare thing to see, especially nowadays in soccer when the assists are so drilled into these players' heads. That really, really shows a lot of skill from McKenna Wright. And really, I think they were kind of mad coming out of that Harding game, and I think they put that anger to good use against East Central. I kind of feel bad for them, losing 3-1. They really just took it out on them, didn't they?
And then East Central going down 3-0, and then in that 84th minute scoring just kind of a extra goal to put themselves on the board. But now we're going to move back in time to the point where the Lady Tigers kind of really got their motivation. Went on the road in Searcy on Thursday, and just a bit of a rough performance for the Lady Tigers. As simply as you can put it, absolutely shut down on offense. A team that this season has really made some big strides on offense, only getting 2 shots on goal in that one, and just a performance that the team's hoping to forget and put behind them. And obviously you saw on Saturday how they really did put that behind them. And Phil, you keep noticing this. Just a quick thing I wanted to notice. Harding taking down Ouachita in 2 sports on Wednesday and then on Thursday, and then on Saturday Ouachita getting the win in football. Almost kind of like Ouachita had to give up 2 soccer wins so that they could take the football win. And when it comes to campus culture, I'd take that.
I'd take it as well. You kind of, I feel bad for the men's soccer team and the women's soccer team that sacrifice had to be made, but I'm sure they had time celebrating as well. I'm sure a lot of the men's and the women's soccer players rushed the field as well on Saturday. I know you did it, so it was really, really, I think, a worthy trade right there.
And if we're thinking honestly, a soccer loss doesn't mean as much as a football loss, especially when in football 1 loss could drop Ouachita from a top 10 team to barely a fringe top 25 team. Meanwhile, a loss here for the Lady Tigers just moves them down in the standings, even if it still might not, because now moving forward this week, the women's soccer team heads to Shawnee, Oklahoma for one of their biggest games of the year, as they have a rematch with the team that they faced in Shawnee last year for the GAC title, Oklahoma Baptist. The Lady Tigers beat them last time out at Cluck Field earlier this season, and now with the second game of the year against the Bison, the Tigers hoping to sweep that series and then go into the GAC championships with a firm grasp on the first place in first place in the GAC. Meanwhile, on Saturday they come back home to face off against Southern Nazarene for the second time.
Absolutely. I think that Oklahoma Baptist team is going to be out for blood. They're going to be out for revenge. The Tigers have to be prepared for a tough matchup. Looking back at that last game, I was there. I got to see how the game played out. They won 2-1. It was very, very evenly matched. I know that the Oklahoma Baptist coach was not happy at all with some of the way that the calls went from the officials. So that this team is going to be out for blood. They're going to really, really give Ouachita a run for their money. Ouachita has to be prepared defensively. What happened against Harding can't happen again. They can't get shut out. This is a team, unlike our men's soccer team, that does focus a lot on offense. It is very, very attack heavy. They're willing to sit back if they have to, but they're very attack heavy. So I think seeing that come out against East Central, they have to keep that momentum going on the road in Shawnee.
And one of the players hoping to continue that momentum is Allison Reese, one of the top sophomore midfielders for this Lady Tiger squad, and we had Representative Jillian Covington standing by with her as she had an interview with Reese earlier this week.
Hey, I'm Jillian, and I'm here with Allison Reese, sophomore soccer player, and we're going to talk about last week's game and this week's game. So, Allison, what's your position and where are you from?
I am a center attacking mid, and I'm from Keller, Texas.
Have you always played that position?
I have, yes.
Is it your favorite position to play?
Yeah, definitely. I played more defensive when I was a kid, and I hated it, so I like playing attacking a lot more.
Okay, good to know. And is this your first or your second year on the team?
This is my second year.
Okay. So what is y'all's record so far?
In conference, we are 4-1-2 right now.
Dang, okay. And so y'all's last game, y'all had a 3-1 victory. Talk a little bit about that game.
I actually missed that game because I've had a concussion this past week, but it actually was nice being able to watch and support from the sideline as we got the dub over ECU, which was a good win for us, good 3 points.
Okay. So was it intimidating when you came in last year with the team being so successful the past few years?
Not necessarily intimidating, more encouraging that we had that strong foundation set already in the program.
Mm-hmm. True. Is it encouraging that so many sophomores and freshmen are on this team so that when you're a junior and senior, it'll be a strong team?
No, yeah, that's definitely encouraging that we have good players that are here now and that are coming in that we won't miss seniors too much when they leave.
All right. And what do you think the team's biggest strength has been this season?
I think our biggest strength is our resilience. We'll have some games where we start off a little weak or we'll get scored on, but we know that we can come back and we'll come back and score and end up winning those games.
All right, and this Wednesday, y'all play Oklahoma Baptist in Oklahoma, correct?
Yes.
And are you looking forward to that game?
Yes, definitely. OQBU is one of our big rival games. We always want to beat them, especially with our past history with them. So.
All right, well, tune in to Oklahoma streaming this Wednesday. That's all.
Now moving on to cross country. Not much in the news for them this week, just training and readying up for the GAC championships as they head to Ada this Saturday, Ada, Oklahoma, the home of the East Central Tigers, and the men's team hoping to find themselves in a top 3 placement in the GAC. Meanwhile, the women going for a title as last season getting beat out and hoping to not do that again this year as the Lady Tigers of the cross-country team did take the GAC title 2 seasons ago, hoping to bring it back home to Arkadelphia.
Just at the same time, the Statesmen have 7 100ths on the Tiger Sharks. The Statesmen now battling to take this one, to have a chance in this one. Savarista won't let them have it. Great turn by the junior. Final 50, Savarista pulling away. He's got over a second now on the Statesman. James Savarese have a day as he is just grueling this one. James Savarese, no one's gonna catch him. What a race for the junior. The Tiger Sharks put a statement on this win over Delta State at home, holding down Wagner Pool. They didn't just win this one, they kicked the Statesmen on the way out. James Savarese, absolute death blow to any Delta State hopes of a comeback.
Now on to swimming, as the swim team had themselves a day on Friday, specifically the men's side, and talking about this men's team getting ranked 20 in the most recent CCSCA polls. And, you know, Tiger Sharks feeling a bit slighted there after the 13th Oklahoma Christian Eagles were ranked 13th, and, you know, the Tiger Sharks beat them 2 weeks ago. But nevertheless, you know, this Tiger Shark team firmly placing themselves in this top 25 as they vanquished the Delta State Statesmen by a score of 136 to 107 here at Wagner Pool just the other day. And I mean, I have a list of so many great performances, and I'll run through them really quick, but I'll just have to go over the highlights because this was a meet for the Tiger Sharks. Obviously, in the 400 IM, Jean-Bor Budosho with a time of 4:07 winning that event. Then we'll talk more about him later, but Daniel Metzaros with a great meet for himself. He picked up 2 individual events with the 200 freestyle and with the 138 and the 500 freestyle winning by almost 5 seconds. On top of that, we'll talk about his relay performances later. Vince Paul with a time of 51:58 in the 100 butterfly, winning it by just 1/100th of a second. What a time for the freshman. And then Sam Ragsdale taking his 3rd 100 freestyle win of the season. Actually, no, excuse me, 4th 100 freestyle win of the season. Great season for the junior so far. He's trying his best now to break 46 as he went 46:36 the other night. And then Miles Schultz earned a win in the 100 breaststroke with a time of 57.5. And now we move on to these relay squads. The 200 medley relay, first of all, the A relay took down Delta's A relay, and then their B relay also took down Delta's A relay. But this 200 medley relay, Sam Ragsdale, Miles Schultz, David Ware, and Rafael Bustillo winning in that event. And then, in my opinion, the event of the meet, the 400 freestyle relay with a squad of Daniel Metzaros, Michael Higgins, Vince Paul, and finished off by James Savarese. And really quick before I swing it to you, Phil, looking at this 400 freestyle relay event, following the 3rd leg, the Statesmen lead by 7/100ths of a second to the wall. James Savarese comes off the block and absolutely dominates. The Tiger Sharks end up winning that event by 3 whole seconds after Savarese finishes off with a 46.5 in that final leg, and just showing the fight and toughness of this Tiger Shark squad that just all day met the Statesmen where they were and then exceeded it even more. Something that is going to be really exciting come later this season when the Tigers in March go to Cleveland, Mississippi to take on Delta along with Henderson and Montevallo for the NSISC championships.
Absolutely. You know, I love a good anchor. I love the way that Savarese is able to you know, his team got him there, and he's able to finish the job. He does a really, really good job there. The Hungarians for the team doing an amazing job as well. As you said, Bajoso with the 400 IM time. Metzaros doing an amazing job. It's only a matter of time before he breaks the pool record in that 200 freestyle. We were talking about it before. Dropping time again with a 138.71. Has yet to suit up in a tech suit this season. You know, the pool record is a 138.4, I think, somewhere around there, you said. So really, I think we're going to see some greatness out of Metzaros as we continue with the season. I cannot wait for a suit up and a taper from him to really see what he can do in the best shape. And obviously, he's not just a 200 freestyler. He can do it in the 500 free as well. You know, blowing out any competition of the water. Every second matters, and I think we saw that with Vince Paul, only winning by 1/100th of a second. That is insane to me. You know, as a former swimmer, I've seen meets go down to very, very thin margins, but I don't know if I've ever seen something quite that thin in a match that wasn't the Olympics or something very, very big. So, we're seeing just the Tiger Sharks being able to finish it when it matters, to finish the race, to swim all the way to the wall and to the end. And I think that can really, really be boiled down to the coaching and the way that they have just been hammered in to continue to go and to continue to swim till they hit the wall at the very, very highest level of competition.
I think it all just comes down to this freshman class and the recruiting from Coach Stephen Bostic. I mean, I've named names. Metzados, one of those freshmen. You got Vince Paul as one of those freshmen. On top of that, you also look at Michael Higgins in that medley relay being another really strong freshman for this squad. But now we move on to the women's team. Not as much success as they would have wanted on Friday, but a lot of future success to come. The Lady Statesmen of Delta State, a little bit better than their men's team. They're 11th in the nation, and they showed that. But some really strong performances for the Ouachita Lady Tiger Sharks. Specifically, let's look at Keely Holcomb in that 200 freestyle. I mean, Keely Holcomb and Anna Phelps really have been the two highlight swimmers for this team, and they showed that again. I mean, it's the same story every time, and rightfully so. Keely Holcomb in the 200 freestyle winning it by more than a second. Almost utter dominance for her in a 155-1, and then also third in the 500 freestyle. And then Anna Phelps winning the 400 IM, and then second in the 100 butterfly. Phelps typically not a butterflyer, or typically not a sprinter, but she really showing that she can get up and go when she needs to. Phelps really has been mainly a distance and IMer for this team, but the 100 butterfly was there for her, and she showed that she can sprint when Coach Bostic really needs her to, and it was a really fun race to watch.
Absolutely. Looking at that Holcomb 500 freestyle, she was just 0.12 seconds out of second place. That's in a 500 freestyle. They were in the water for over 4 minutes, and she lost by just 0.12. That's really astonishing. It's something you don't see very often. So she really, really did a good job of keeping the Tigers close there. And I think Anna Phelps just demonstrating the conditioning that the team puts in and just how all-around skilled this team really is at the top. I think we have a very bright future ahead for this women's Tiger Sharks team.
And you'll get to see that along with the men's team again in action in Kirksville, Missouri, coming up this weekend. As most of us go home for fall break, they are heading on the road as they go to Truman State. As former swimmer for Ouachita, now the head coach of Truman State, Jacob Ragsdale, will be there waiting for them. And last year, the Tiger Sharks faced off against Truman State here at Wagoner Pool, so now heading on the road for that one. And, now with just this Truman meet on the horizon, and then Henderson State in the first edition of the Battle of the Ravine, this time will be at the Duke Wells Natatorium. And so the Tiger Sharks, that Truman State, a good warm-up for what looks to be the biggest matchup in the New South Intercollegiate Swim Conference this season. And it will be interesting to see if the men's team, at least, can take their first win at the Duke Wells Natatorium since it's been double-digit years since that's happened. So it'll be a fun meet for that. But for now, that's just about been all of it. We've had a great week in football. We've had a great week in volleyball. By the standard soccer, both soccer teams a little bit of a down week, but hoping to pick up this week. Cross country hoping to have an up week this week, and then swimming finishing off with a pretty great week as well. We've had a fun week here on the campus of Ouachita Baptist University, and we will be back with you to report on this week's news next week. But for now, this has been Isaac Bourne and Phil Byrd, and thank you for watching the Roar Rundown.